You guys for inviting me here. I've spoken here a few times over the years. Greg, I really appreciate every time you invite me out here. It feels like friends, especially with Rick and the events that we did with polio a few years ago. It's always great to feel like you're around family and community, especially with the times right now where they're feeling a little uncertain. And I want to talk to you about something that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm only going to do it for the first short portion of it, but it's important to me, and it's important that we grasp what this issue is. So if you can just bear with me for the first 5 minutes, and then I'll talk about ultra sports and some fun and move into the hope section of it. I want to share with you guys about how I got involved with Rotary and where I got started and what brought me to this community. So I found some old pictures. This is when I went to India as a Rotary exchange student in high school. So my high school years started, my freshman year like anyone else, but I'd come from a really hard background, and it was one of those, I was at this turning point in my life trying to figure out what to do. And during my wrestling season, I ran into this guy, Darren Sweeney, who was one of the most terrible wrestlers, but one of the most joyful people I'd ever run into. And I had the opportunity to listen to Darren share about his faith on the bus the one time. And Darren became that person who introduced me to my faith background and my spiritual background, which was a huge shifting point at about 14 years old and really launched me into who I was. And the following year I found Rotary, and honestly the reason I wanted to go on the Rotary trip was I'd found my faith, and I didn't know anything about scripture, about philosophy, about these things. So I was sharing this stuff because I tend to overdo things. So I was so passionate about it, but I had no knowledge. And I remember thinking, I wish I had a month where I could just learn about this. And over the speaker in the hall the one day, they were like, Rotary exchange student. I was like, oh, I could do that. I could do it for the summer. And then I went to the meeting and they talked about a year program. So I went to India to learn about spirituality, to learn about different religions, to learn about different cultures. And I'm so grateful for Rotary for that opportunity to go. You can see in the bottom right corner, that's my Rotary jacket. I also got introduced to ultra endurance sports in India. We had this gym owner there who was celebrating the 50th year of independence from Britain. And so they did a 50-hour nonstop aerobics. So if you can do the math on that, that's 2 days in a row and then another 2 hours. And it was so mind-boggling to me because I'd never worked out for more than 3 hours in my life, even though at that point I'd been an athlete for a few years. And it just opened up, it was almost like unlocked this box of what is physically and humanly and mentally possible to go through. There's another person in my community I want to talk to you about. So this is my high school experience, 13 to 17 years old. There's a person I'm really close to. Her name was Jenny. During that same time period, we have very similar backgrounds, but at 13, 14 years old, instead of finding her faith, Jenny got caught in with a lot of the small town struggles. She started using drugs pretty quickly, kind of spiraled from there, started going to the big city to get the drugs, started stealing, going and doing shoplifting, and eventually found herself involved in prostitution to help pay for the drugs, got picked up by a pimp. And from the same time period I went and found my faith and went to India and was off on this great course, Jenny was off on this course the other direction. She got involved in drugs, become addicted, and found herself in the world of human trafficking. And it was fascinating to me. 2 months ago, I got to go back to India with Darren Sweeney, the same guy who shared his faith with me. And so going back after 22 years to do some trainings with Hope 61, the group I'm working with this year. And it was during that training that I realized, because I had always thought of Jenny as a prostitute, but Jenny, when she got into it, she was 14 years old. And there's a difference between, the average age of human sex trafficking is 12 to 13 years old. It's dropping. And so this is one of those things that it made me realize, the way we label that is important. And the way we think about what's happening to our kids, especially in the foster care system, it's important that we're aware of how quickly they can be pulled out. And within a short period of 3 months to a few years, they can go from normal, stable kids to pulled into into these situations. Depending on the stats, people say there's about 40 million people enslaved in human trafficking. This is child sex trafficking, labor trafficking, So those are the ones that the groups tend to focus on. This year with District 5280, I reached out to 3 different groups. One was an international organization, that's Hope 61. It's the faith-based group that I'm doing some trips with. And then there's a group in our backyards that does mainly work at Super Bowls, major sporting events. This is one of the hubs of where a lot of this activity happens. So they do rescue work in those situations. We have the Super Bowl coming here in a couple years. And then we have a local group, Cast LA, that we're going to be working with. So they work with a lot of different groups in the area, and they do like rescue work, training, education. So those are the 3 groups that we're working with as a district, raising money and awareness through this year. And now I wanted to switch from the struggle topic to a much more joyful topic. So I thank you for just hearing me out there. I'll come back to it a little at the end, but I really want to focus on hope and what we can do as Rotarians, and and how we can make a difference in the world. So for Race Across America, Greg mentioned it. This was one of those activities that I felt like took me from like a really good high school athlete almost to like junior Olympic level. It opened up my capacity for what I could do like by leaps and bounds. So it's a little over 3,000 miles. You have 12 days to cover the ground. So it's running clock. You have 288 hours. Less than half the people tend to finish. I think I was the 319th person in history to do it. So the year I did it, there was 42 riders, some of the top cyclists in the world, and 21 of us finished. That year we raised a little over $20,000 for brain cancer. One of my good friends passed away about 6 years ago now. The following year, which is why I'm so into the polio and where I got really close with Rick, during past District Governor Cosette Vergari's year, we ended up raising a little over $700,000 for polio. So for me, like just an amazing, like you can take your passion, and Rotary and organizations like Rotary just exponentially have that impact on how you can affect the world. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to take my hobby of trail running and ultra running and raise money and awareness for these causes that we all have on our radars. The big thing, like people ask me why I do these events. And if you can look at this picture, community and family are important. So my crew, I have a few technical people, but most of them are my friends and my family and the people closest to me. Starting on the right, that's me. And then there's the race director for my home marathon, my mother-in-law, my wife, my 1-year-old son Hudson, my niece Madison, who's been doing races with me since she was like 3. And then this is one of my training partners on the far left. And his name's Sean Flanagan. And the community of ultra running and ultra sports is absolutely fascinating. I've heard people say, like, don't trust a person under 14,000 feet. That's what hikers say. Any community that you're in that has that core group, you're a part of it because of how loyal and passionate those people are towards you and the others. Sean had done a race the week before. He was totally shot. Legs were thrashed. He was going to come pace me for about 5 miles. He caught up with me about 65 miles into it. And he pretty much did every step of the last 70 miles with me. So day in and day out, he hardly left my side. And it's just amazing to see that connection and community. And for me in ultra sports, like God gave me an extra portion of ability to suffer well and to go through these experiences with joy and consistently. And I'm just so thankful for the community and how it just brings us to life and brings that connection and partnership. The last one, this is last summer. So we did a fundraiser. There's a 2-year buildup for human trafficking prevention. And so we ended up doing a Facebook fundraiser. And without even having to focus on the fundraising, we raised a little over $10,000. It was the main reason I did this swim was I wanted to make sure that I could swim from Palos Verdes to the shores right down below here. I'm not a swimmer. I'm extremely slow. I've done a few long swims for Ironman, and my whole goal is to not drown and to make the time cutoffs. So to get into 53-degree water and swim across an open strait, 18.3 miles, was terrifying for me. But working through the year and doing the build-up, all you got to do is get to the start line, get the right people around you, and you just gotta go, and you just gotta start and just not stop. And it's just one stroke after the other. And that's what happened. I got in the water, and you just start moving, and you keep going, and you go as long and as far as you can. So this one, for me, was overcoming perceived obstacles or things that I thought I couldn't do. And this is so outside of my ability range and comfort range. But I was like, I bet you if I do the same thing I've done for other sports, I think my body and my mind will respond the same way. And I was grateful to find out it does. Like it's incredible what we can do as human beings. And that leads us to this year's. So I did the swim training because I was looking at, with Race Across America, it's touted the world's toughest ultra cycling race, and then Badwater is the world's toughest run. And then the swim, I was trying to look for a swim distance that's equivalent to the world's toughest. There's no real set one that people have. The Juan de Fuca people will say that's pretty close to right up there. So this is combining those three elements in one race. Most ultra events, the 400 miles is about the top that people go. Swimming, 21 miles is pretty difficult. This swim especially, you have to do at night. So you start around 8, 9 p.m. and swim through the night. I crewed for a guy, so there's a lot of, you have the rollers, you have a lot of things that are out there, but basically it's keeping yourself awake and just moving forward. And then followed by the Badwater 130-35. So this will take me about a week, and I have a quick video which will give you a little bit better understanding of it.
Beyond the Ultra is the Uber, a race unlike any other, surpassing the extreme into the realm of the impossible. This is the Uberman. 21 miles from Santa Catalina Island to Palos Verdes, equivalent to swimming the English Channel. 400 miles from the coast, deep into the heart of the California desert at Badwater Basin, the lowest point in the U.S. 135 miles across Death Valley, and finally, finishing at Mount Whitney Portal, 8,360 feet above sea level, to be crowned this year's Uberman.
Yeah! So that joyful guy you hear in the background, that's a fellow Rotarian from up in Santa Barbara. He's, I think, 70 years old. He was my safety guy climbing up to Whitney when we did that. I love old climbers because they're the safest guys you can go with, and they've usually done so many things that it's just incredible. I wanted to share a few stories because Greg told me to talk a little bit about the pain and the struggle and the stress of ultra sports, just to give you a glimpse into it. One I'll pull from, and then I can open up to questions if we have time. So last weekend I did this race. It was out in Death Valley area. So it's called the Double Double. So you do a 200-mile bike ride on Saturday, followed by a 200-miler on Sunday. There was about 45 of us signed up, about 15 of us finished. And it's one of those, you go out to the desert because you want to pass through a struggle. So you don't go for an easy course. You know what you're getting into. And on Saturday, it's cold and then it's windy and there's all these factors that come up. But all you got to do is you just have to keep pedaling, and you just do one stroke in front of the other, and you figure out ways to solve whatever problems come your way. So Saturday went pretty good, and Sunday was supposed to be a lot windier. Like Saturday was gnarly, and then Sunday was supposed to be worse. Like there was wind in the forecast. There was supposed to be up to 30 to 50 mile an hour gusts. It looked like we were going to have pretty strong headwinds. So we started Sunday morning. And I had planned for about 40, 45 degree weather, and I'd forgotten that we go up to elevation right away, so we go up to 4,000 feet. So within the first 3 hours, instead of being 40, 45 degrees, it got down to 28 degrees. And I dress really light when I go, so I had a t-shirt, a light jacket, and shorts, and my shoes. So my legs got near that cherry red bright because it's 28 degrees and you're going downhill. And all of a sudden I'm shaking, and I was like, oh, I screwed up. Like I know to be prepared for these courses, and so you make decisions like, do you stop? Do you keep going? And so for me, I call this time, it's called bad time. So there's about 5 miles. We're getting close to the next aid station. I called my wife up, and it's like, I'm not doing very well. I'm going to slow down, because I don't want to injure myself, and I'm just going to soft pedal it to there. And then once I get there, I'll warm up. I'll find a way to warm up, and then the day is going to heat up. So I'll stay as long as I need to until the sun comes up. But during those 5 miles, you get to, it's like all you can do is the next pedal stroke, and you just go, and you just do one pedal in front of the other. And instead of counting every 5 miles, like, oh, I'll look at every 10th of mile, or I'll pull myself away to a thought that keeping myself present and just get to that next safety place. And it's one of those things. as ultra endurance athletes, I was taught this rule from the guys that got me into it. You don't make a decision when you're in a bad spot. You wait until you're in a good spot and then you decide to quit. So when I'm in that bad time, you don't stop. You just keep moving forward. You get to that safe spot. And then once you recover, you can take a little time off, get some fuel, heat up. And then when you're in a good place, then you decide whether or not you're going to quit or not. And the funny thing is, if you get yourself in a good spot, you're never going to stop. You're like, get me back on the bike. So I got into the aid station finally, which, that 5 miles, it probably took me, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes, and it might as well have been like 5 or 10 hours. Things just slow down, and it's just incredible what it does to your mind. But I got in there, the aid guy, I was talking to him, and I was like, would you mind warming up your car? And I can warm up for 10 minutes. So he turns on his car, turns on the heater. I take off my shoes, warm up my legs. And 15 minutes later, I'm on my bike, back 100%, just ready to go. And it's amazing how quickly you can shift back into a positive point. So that was just a recent example of one of those experiences going through. Another one I wanted to share is the swim, and then I'll come to a close and open up for questions. So what happened on the swim, it was supposed to be 18 miles. I knew that I was going to get sucked in on the currents, was expecting about 25 miles with that. We ended up getting drastically sucked in and out of the current, which put us just over 31 miles. And at the end of it, I got in this area called Trial Island, which I was told to not go towards because the currents are like a toilet bowl effect. So no matter what you do when you're going towards the shore, you'll hit these cross currents that kick you back out to center and then to these other locations. So after about 3 hours of hitting these cross currents and having these misses on shore, I had one last shot to hit the lighthouse. So we swam as strong as we could for 45 minutes. You can feel your heart racing. You're just, it's after dark. I'd never been to the ocean after dark, 53-degree water. And we're going as fast and strong as we could. And I got within 670 feet of it, and I hit that cross current, and it flushed us back out to center. So I paused for a little while. I had 2 safety boats. And I talked to the captains, and I was like, the reason I wanted to do the swim was to make sure I could do the Catalina swim. We've covered the miles. I was like, is there any way we can get to shore within the next 2 to 4 hours? And there's just silence. And so I was like, we've done what we need to do. Are you okay if I get out of the water? Because we didn't have safety lights. We didn't have stuff. And they're like, yeah. It's like, you did what you said. And so I had them pull me out of the water into the boat and went to shore. And for me, it's like, thank God that I have people around me to pull me out of the water, because I feel like that's what a lot of trafficking victims or a lot of people that are in these things, they don't have someone there, they don't have that safety boat to pull them out. And in my own strength, as strong as I am and as good at what I do, I couldn't get myself to the shore, and I couldn't find that way to bridge that chasm. And so as Rotarians and as people who care about people, let's be those people that can pull people out of the water and get them to safety when they can't do it on their own strength. So for those of you who are moved by what I'm saying today, one of the things I've been asking Rotary clubs to, for those of you who feel compelled, if the club wants to donate $500 to $1,000 towards this, it goes right into the District 5280 charitable account catered towards human trafficking prevention. 100% of it goes towards that cause. For those of you who also want to help with the costs that are involved with the event costs, to put on the event itself, it's about a week long with the boat, the rental cars, the flights for my crew. It's about $30,000 with the event costs and then the media costs. We've raised a little over $2,000 of it. If you guys have sponsors that you could introduce me to, that's the best way I've found to do that. It's really hard to get sponsorship for this. If not, we find ways to get it covered. But I'm just grateful to be a part of this community, and I want to make sure that the club money goes towards fighting human trafficking. But if you also feel compelled to help cover the cost of this particular event, I'd be grateful for that as well. And I'll open it up to questions, and just thank you guys for your time.